Jason Demers, the former NHL defenseman. Like, I'm not fixing that fucking fence. That's ridiculous, right? I should get a new one.
Yeah, that's a tough fence. You need to get a new one. That's a tough fence. You can't be rolling around doing this nice, great podcast and be sitting in that fence.
Yeah,
I have to stare at that every day. So you need at least spray it. Give me some, like, paint it a different color or something.
You could do copper and blue.
Yeah, I don't know.
One panel blue, one panel.
You run that idea past Amber and see what she says about the idea of me painting the fence copper and blue, Liam. Jason, we were having a debate. We'll get to the hockey talk now. 100 assists for Connor McDavid, or if Austin Matthews gets to 70 goals, which one's more impressive?
It's so tough because they're both just, I find they're just so equally amazing seasons and what Connor's done. And I mean, the points to go with the assists is incredible. Like, so the goals that he's put up as well, Connor. But you know, Matthews has had an equally impressive season. It's so hard. You know, I value more, you know, if he gets to 70, and we kind of all had this funny handshake deal. I feel like everybody were like, if he gets 70, it's like the greatest season you could put together. And now that all these other guys, Connor included, have had these incredible seasons, everybody's kind of just like, well, 75. Like 75 goals now. 70 is not enough. It's probably the best offensive season I've seen in my memory in my life ever. So it's so hard to put weight on which is better. They're both teams are kind of having the same kind of season as a team. It's me personally. I love what Connor's doing and Joe Thornton, for him to have gotten 100 assists in a season. I think it's so incredible. And I feel like somebody's gonna get over 70 goals eventually in the NHL. I think it's one of those things that's gonna happen, and it'll probably be Austin. So for me, that's me kind of riding the fence, so to speak, and not trying to pick one or the other because it is too tough. But I'd probably say if he gets 70, it's Austin. I think it's impressive, but you know, I think Connor right now, because he's not going to finish at 100 assists. He's probably going to end with 110 maybe. The way he's going, if he gets 110, that's absolutely incredible. Like he's looking at his schedule, you know, he can get it. So yeah. It's interesting to see. I mean, look at his numbers. Like the last 10 games, it's ridiculous. He's not human, and what he does with this team is incredible. So I think if 100 assists is great, just like 70 goals, I think is incredible. But he's going to get way past 100 assists. So we'll see where he ends up.
Yeah, over the weekend, big performances for McDavid. 2 goals against the Avs, 2 apples against the Calgary Flames. But from a team perspective, those were 2 really impressive wins. You go out, hand it to the Avs 6-2 on Friday night. Next night, you fly down to Calgary, short flight, but you go on the road, pick up 2 points against a rival. Did the Oilers show you anything in that win against Colorado, maybe even in that win against Calgary, to, we'll call it, erase maybe some of the doubts coming off that 5-0 loss to Dallas? Like, we had question marks after that one. Yeah. Did they erase any of that with the way they handled the Avs?
The Avs is 100 times more impressive than the Calgary game. I know, you know, Calgary's, it's a rival, but they're kind of out of it. You know, they don't really have, their roster's not great, and they're kind of preparing for next season. So even though there is little tinges of that rivalry in the game, guys don't like each other, and it's just the way it is. It's not the same as it was if they were competing for a spot. But that game against the Avalanche was incredible to watch. They beat up on the Avalanche. They took it to them. I mean, specifically, Matthias Ekholm was the best game I've seen him play as an Oiler, was that game, and not so much offensively, but you know, which he still had an amazing offensive game, but what he did defensively and stymieing that top line, injuring Rantanen. He not only knocked out Rantanen, he hit him in the first just as hard behind the net and could have knocked him out there, and then knocked him out, put him in concussion protocol. He was playing mean. All the D played tight defensively. They were playing tough. Goaltending was great. And up front, they were dynamic, you know, and I like the kind of lines that they put together. And I think it was their best team win that I've seen in a while. And for me, I was like, okay, this is a playoff ready team. Like, they're ready for playoffs now. I had some doubts after that Dallas game. I watched that Dallas game, and I didn't like the way it was, how it looked. And they kind of, you know, Edmonton has the weird when they're not switched on mentally and they're kind of in that, this is going to be easy, they lulled themselves to sleep. Leon and guys like that, they'll just kind of go on their own page and not playing the team game that makes them so good. It hurts them. And then it kind of takes a game like Dallas to kind of shoot them back into the present moment. And then they kind of go on their way and they're the team, the dominant team that they can be. So it's great to see, and it quelled a lot of my fears, but it also raises the question of, like, you can't do that in the playoffs. Like, you can't have a lull and then shoot back in, because in the playoffs, the games are going to be played tighter. And if you kind of have that 5-0 game they did in Dallas and then try to bounce back, well, if you lose one of those two games where even though you're out playing the other team, the goalie steals the game, now you're down, you just lost two. So it's a weird way to look at it, but they have to stay switched on the rest of the year. Like, they can't have a lull going into the postseason, because the West is just, we talked about it last time I was on it, it's just a gauntlet. And all these teams I would say this is the year in the West, every team could win a cup in this division over the East. The East maybe has two teams I'd give it to. Other than the Kings, which I don't think are there goaltending wise, like 7 of these teams could win the cup. So it's like, you can't take a game off, especially down the stretch. Like, you got to make sure, because as a coach too for Knobloch, like, you got to know what lines you want to roll into come playoff time. And then you also need to know what lines, if things are going bad, you can go to. So they just need to kind of stay switched on, and guys need to make sure that everything in the room is tight. So, which has been the last two games.
One other thing that happened over the weekend, and it got calmed down yesterday, but KanePerry and Evander Kane had their discussion, we'll call it, on the bench. I think there was one person having a discussion, the other one was listening. What did you make of that situation? And I guess, have you been around anything like that before, where maybe someone is calling them out so aggressively, we'll call it, on the bench?
Yeah, run the clip, AB, too.
I'll just tell you right now, I grew up in the league this way, and I was on some teams where the bench was like a war zone. It was worse than on the ice. Like, if you missed a pass, you'd have 7 guys down your throat. You'd be, is swear words allowed on this?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I dropped an F-bomb earlier. It's fine.
Okay, great. You'd be getting motherfucked. You'd be motherfucking guys. You'd be screaming at the forwards, "Wake up!" You'd be getting yelled back, "We'll make a pass." And it's, I think for me, like, I just think I'm more engaged when it's that way, and I think you keep guys engaged, and guys like Kane, I think, need that. I think Perry's the perfect guy to have on that team, because Kaner's one of those guys, and listen, I'll give him his flowers. He's one of the more talented shooters, power forwards in the NHL, but he can get disinterested if he's not the focal point of offense and he's not kind of catered to. And it's nothing against him at all. I just think he needs to. There's guys in the league that need to play a lot of minutes to be effective, and when they're not getting those minutes, they don't like it. And it's listen, we all want to play heavy minutes, but he's more effective when he's kind of playing, when he's engaged. So I think having KanePerry there is phenomenal. I don't think there's anything to it other than he was yelling at him, and Kaner was probably giving it right back to him, which I think Kaner should. But that's a good thing. Like, they need a guy on that bench that can give it to Kaner, because I think it'll help Kaner. And whether Kaner wants to admit it or not, like, I have a huge respect for his game, but it's good to have those guys that can cattle prod certain guys, because a coach might not be able to get that out of him, but KanePerry, with his statue and what he's done in his career, like, he can sit there and be like, hey, like, that's not good enough. Like, we need better. And maybe Leon and Conor can't quite, they're more lead by example. They'll kind of yell and stuff, but you need a guy like Corey that can grab him by the scruff and just tell him, like, hey, let's go. And for Kaner, I think it's he probably likes that as well, because he might need that. And then, I thought he played a great game, and it's one of those things. I think him and Perry are huge X factors for this playoff run. Like, they need those two guys with fire every game, because they're the guys that are going to pull the other team, get them distracted and kind of pull them out of their game, and allow these top guys on offensively to kind of, like Leon, Conor, Hyman, just allow those guys to kind of operate freely, and they're going to play maybe a more undercover, not as, say, not a, how would I put that word? Like, just not a game that's going to like get tons of accolades, but it's going to be effective, and it's going to be the difference in them winning the cup or not winning the cup. So I think I wouldn't worry about it. I know it's fun in Canada for media, love seeing that because they get to jump all over it, and it's a talking point for 3 days. But I played with Joe Thornton, and I mean, I never heard a guy ream out. I got reamed out every game and every practice, and it made me better. And you see which guys are competitors and which guys aren't. So, and Kane responded great to it. So more power to him. And I thought the way they handled it in the media was phenomenal. They're like, we're brothers. It's we fight, and it should be dead at that. So it's really encouraging for me to see that.
And they're partners in the Masters pool that the team's doing this week. So that's a big bonding moment as well.
That is.
You're talking about Corey Perry and the impact. I mean, impact in the room, notable. He's a guy who's come in, he's scoring at like an 18, 19 goal pace over 82 games with the Oilers. I know he hopped in midway through the year. The other thing too, and you touched on it, is his ability to get under the skin of the other team. You spent a bulk of your career in the Pacific Division battling Corey Perry. Is that like a legit factor? And can you tell us about maybe a moment or something you remember Corey Perry always doing that really drove you nuts?
Well, I always kind of, when I played, I had that in me as well. So I always kind of knew guys like that were a little bit borderline on the edge, and I'd try to go after them. And he's such a big guy, and I'm sure we had a ton of battles. Those years with Anaheim and San Jose was some amazing rivalries because we were both great teams, and they had such a great roster with Bobby Ryan and Getzlaf and Niedermeyer, Pronger. I mean, the list goes on and on. But yeah, he's just a rat. Like it just is what it is. Like he's so good at timing when the refs aren't looking to just give you a shot, or at the right time of the game, he just bumps you in a certain way that just pisses you off. And guys like that are hard to play against because you want to take a run at him and kill him, but you're also like, they know what's going on the ice. He's a great player as well. It's not like he's a rat and a bad hockey player. Like, he's very skilled. He's on an 18, 19 goal pace, and he knows where his body is in space and where the guys are on the ice. So it's not like he's easily hittable. So you're also like kind of get frustrated in that way because you're like trying to chase him around, but you can't chase him around the ice because he's got a great stick net front and he can score goals. So you're like, this son of a bitch. It's just more maddening than anything. So he's a huge role. I think it was such a great pickup by Ken Holland and the Brain Trust to bring him in, and he's going to be a big factor come playoff time for sure, which he has been on every team he's played on in the latter part of his career.
Dylan Holloway got recalled to the Oilers today, and he goes down to the American League. He does really well, then he comes up, and he doesn't find his way as easy, I guess is fair to say. What do you think of Holloway's game and maybe a perfect way to slot him into the lineup could be?
It's tough because he's kind of a Broberg-esque where I love him as a kid. I played with both of them. He's such a great kid and wants to learn and wants to be a top guy. But it's hard to learn how to play 9 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. And as a young kid that's that talented, his whole career he's played 20-plus minutes. He's played the first power play. He's the focal point of the offense. How do you handle that as a kid as you come into a team and now you're playing 9 minutes, no power play? You can't be a factor offensively. You maybe have one or two shifts where you'll have a chance to be offensively forward thinking, and you can't give up any goals again. So typically a guy like that he might give up some goals defensively like Conor does. Like they'll have miscues defensively, but they'll always get it back because they have 22, 23 minutes and they're so good offensively. So for him, it's learning how to play away from the puck. So he goes down in the A and he crushes it because he's getting 20 minutes a night, first power play, and that's his game. So, I mean, other than slotting him on the first or second line, he's probably going to have to go down and play. And just when I talk to kids like that are playing, I say, listen, you may not want to do it, but you have to play physical and you got to play defensive and try to create something offensively off of a forecheck because you're not going to get these clean looks because also you're not playing with Conor and Leon or you know, in the minors, you have Seth Griffith, you have Lane Peterson, guys that are proven AHL scorers. So you're playing with bottom six guys that have a more defensive-minded role. So you have to play a different game. So it's learning how to play within that game. And I know fans look at him, they're like, well, he's not producing. Well, it's like, it's the same thing with Broberg. Those guys need to play 20 minutes a night, and they have to learn, because they can't, because there's no room right now. They have to learn how to play 7-8 minutes and be effective. And that's as hard as an NHL player as being effective at 22, 23 minutes. So for him, it's hopefully it comes up, you know, just be physical, be good defensively. And when you can get a chance to get some offense, you got to capitalize on it. So it's easier said than done, but he's kind of a kid that he's very strong-willed and wants to be a top guy. So I think it's only a matter of time. And if he doesn't get his opportunity here, he'll get it somewhere else.
I always think whenever I hear stuff like that about Andrew Cogliano early in his Oilers career, like first round pick, okay, he's going to be a top 6 center who scores 25 goals, all of this stuff. And he had to have the, call it a come to Jesus moment one summer where it's like, whoa, like I'm never going to be that guy if I want to stick in the league. I need to learn how to kill penalties. I need to learn to be effective in my 12, 15 minutes. And he ended up playing 1,000 games in the NHL, right? Like for every example, like Cogliano, there's 5-6 guys who just never quite figure that out. And I think for the
5-6, there's
way to figure out how to be that guy is everything.
Yeah, there's for every one guy like Cogliano, there's 100 that just and you hit it on the head. It's adaptability, and you have to constantly be looking at yourself in the mirror. Because listen, when I played hockey, yeah, of course, I came to the league. I was offensive minded and was more of a offensive forward thinking player, and I was playing power play. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to play. I don't want to play if I'm not playing power play and offensive situations. And it's not fun to play D. And then you realize quickly that, or you don't realize that, you know, if you don't fit in on a team, there's guys that are better than you offensively. So what happens if there's 6 guys better than you offensively? Well, you got to find out where to fit on that bottom 6. So, and you got to change your game. And it sucks because that's the business side of things. That's awful. But again, we all wish that all the offensive guys could play and all the defensive guys. If there's not enough, there's, 20 to 25 spots on a team, and you got to find a way where you fit on that team. So you have to constantly be taking stock, unless you're Connor McDavid or Leon that are so gifted offensively that you're leaps and bounds better than everybody, that you're just going to be there no matter what. But you take a look at Zach Hyman, and he finds a way to mold his game into what's needed by the team. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is another guy. He's you could say he's the top winger on 80% of the rosters in the NHL. But on this team, he has to take it more defensive. He learned how to play great defensively while adding an offense. He's become one of the best two-way centers in the league. So it requires you to check in with yourself and take the ego out of it. And, when I was with Dylan in the minors, and Brad Malone's a great mentor to him as well. And something we kind of tried to tell him is like, you have to find a way to make it in no matter what, and bide your time till you could be that offensive guy. And if that never comes, well, do you either want to be stubborn and play in the AHL and NHL your career, or do you want to say, hey, listen, take my medicine. I'm going to make sure I do whatever I can to stay in the league and play a long career. So it's just more what you put stock in as a player. So, but I think he's a kid that's kind of figured it out, and hopefully he kind of keeps building on his game.
As always, Jason, appreciate the insight, man. Thanks for hopping on again, and we'll chat with you next week.
Hey, appreciate it. See you, boys. We got the time zones down, so we're good now.
Yeah, we got it all. We got it all sorted.
That was me. It's much as me as you guys. I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh yeah, I got an hour, and then I didn't look at my phone, and I get home, and I'm like, oh fuck's sakes, not again. Arizona strikes again.
Goddamn daylight savings time. All right, thanks, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Take care.
There you go. Jason Demers on the Star Mechanical guest line. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.